Okay. As I ring this bowl, let's now relax into this common space as we gather in this winter season, which has finally relaxed its grip on us a little bit, and realize that we need to be together. We yearn for deeper connections and the familiar faces of friends and the sounds of friendly voices. Lots of sounds of friendly voices. Let us find an inner peace away from the hubbub of our daily lives for a little while this morning. Very nice. Thank you, Michael. Well, good morning. Welcome to Unitarian Universalists of the Chester River. A special welcome to our friends, members, and visitors, both here in the sanctuary and those joining us on Zoom. Our mission, as you will note on the cover of our order of service, is to inspire, inform, and support all who seek spiritual and personal growth and a more equal and just community. I'm Jan Sprinkle, worship leader today, joining Reverend Catherine Adams for the continuation of a very interesting series of sermons on the stories we tell and how those stories define us. And this is another appropriate time to raise your hand for a piece of paper and a flimsy one if you didn't get one when you came in. Moving on to announcements, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that Darlene is not available for a while. I'll talk to that more in sharing, but that puts a little extra burden on us since she actually does everything for this service. So if I miss an announcement, please wave your hand and we'll try to make up for it. I will remind that next week is our pledge drive kickoff with a lunch. Very good. And I'm not modern enough to know.
This is celebration, son.
Yes. And so next Sunday, come prepared to listen to a presentation from Tom Tontarski. And, oh, there you are. And we'll kick off our annual pledge drive. And March 1st is our annual auction, which is one of our biggest fundraisers. Please see Jane Hardy if you have items that you're considering, and she can give you guidance on which would be appropriate items to raise the most money. And that's all I have for announcements right now. So in your order of service, the words for lighting the chalice are there, and can we please recite those in unison? We light this chalice as a symbol of light within all creation. We light this chalice for truth. May the search for truth be within us always. We light this chalice for love. May the love for others be strong in our hearts. And now is your opportunity to sing. Hymn number 346. This is our story told through music in this very easy to sing hymn, which is my way of saying, let's get into the spirit of this one and consider this your audition for the choir.
Y'all sounded great. What a way to celebrate winter, right? Bring me a rose in the wintertime. Our opening words for today is an excerpt of The Map You Make Yourself by Jan Richardson. You have looked at so many doors with longing, wondering if your life lay on the other side. For today, choose the door that opens to the inside. Travel the most ancient way of all, the path that leads to the center of your life. No map but the one you make yourself. No provision but what you already carry, and the grace that comes to those who walk the pilgrim's way. Speak this blessing as you set out and watch how your rhythm slows. The cadence of the road drawing you into the pace that is your own. Eat when hungry, rest when tired. Listen to your dreaming. Welcome detours as doors to deepen in. Pray for protection, ask for guidance, offer gladness for the gifts that come, and then let go.
This is is that time in the service for you to share your joys or concerns with the congregation. For those of you here in the sanctuary, and you all know the drill, come up. I will light the candle, take a microphone, and share with the congregation. For you on Zoom, raise your hand or somehow get Dave's attention.
Unmute yourself.
And unmute yourself, exactly. And then you can share with us also. And I'll now light our first candle to acknowledge the global challenges and suffering with natural disasters, as well as the human-caused tragedies that fill the news each evening, especially the victims of the California wildfires. Now, it strikes me that I wrote this 2 weeks ago, and we had juggled the services. It's probably not quite as relevant as it was then. I think it has rained in California. Not that there is any less misery, but it's not quite the same level of currency. Okay, so the first candle I light will be for the overall tragedies. I will light one more, acknowledging that Darlene, our administrative assistant, has injured her knee and is quite incapacitated. We are working on, I'm not sure what the status of that is, John Ramsey, on getting her a small laptop so that, this sounds kind of cruel in a way, so that she can continue working while she's bedridden. But frankly, I think she would appreciate the activity and maybe even misses us. So keep Darlene in your thoughts and the problems of the world also.
Good morning. I have a joy to share this time for once. I've mentioned my family in Phoenix and some of the dysfunctional challenges that they've been facing. But now my granddaughter Avery, who is 16, has been accepted to a summer program at Harvard it's a week. It's like a summer program. But she's really excited about it, and she has chosen me to come along as her companion. So I'm excited about it too.
That's great.
Good morning, Vita. Darlene is, her diagnosis is kind of uncertain at this point, but she's in Chestertown and waiting transfer to a rehab center where she can hopefully get better. But she doesn't want visitors, but you could do cards and we'll make sure she gets the cards. Anyway, one other thing, last Monday, my prep school roommate's wife texted me and said that Bruce was in transition. Now was dying of cancer and at hospice at home. Now I didn't think Bruce believed in transition, so I figured I'd better get over there and visit him, which I did. And you know, when you're seeing somebody for the very last time and you know it, it's kind of uncomfortable. You don't know exactly what to say. So at one point I go, "Hey Bruce, can you see the light at the end of the tunnel?" and Bruce goes, "No, Cleveland." So Bruce kept his sense of humor right up to the end, and he died 2 days later. So.
I have a new hero. This is a joy. I think we all need heroes. And my new hero is Reverend Marianne Edgar Buddy. And what is astonishing to me is that her simple sermon, which echoed religious traditions of all religions, and certainly of Jesus Christ, was characterized as political by Mike Johnson. So we need heroes, and she's a new one for all of us.
Thank you.
Hey, hello everybody. Mine's not a it's not a joyous situation here. I have a friend of mine who I grew close to when he worked for me, and he's suffering immensely from alcoholism and depression and whatever, and he's at the end of his rope. And if everybody could just say, a little prayer to try to help him. I've done everything in the world I can do, and I've run out of options. So this is it. My last option is to pray that there are some people in here that may be able to help them out with their prayers. And who knows, it might turn out better, but if not, that's okay too, I guess.
Hi, I'm MQ Writing. With Darlene being out, it's difficult. But the reality is everyone in this room, whether you're a member, friend, visitor, are helping this church continue, and I appreciate it greatly. And I just think we all should send positive energy to Darlene so that perhaps she can be back sooner versus later.
Thank you.
It's a sad note because everybody knew her. My sister Sally died on Monday, and she's out of pain, and she's somewhere good, I hope, because she was a good person, and you all knew that. And it was hard, but I can talk about it now. But with you people, just thinking about it makes me cry, because I'm here, and you all love me and are kind to me, and you were kind to Sally. And so, thanks for being there.
And as you know, some of us have that light that wherever we are is just shines brightly, and that would be Sally. And we loved her so much. She was a member of our congregation. And so for Michael and all the sisters, our love is with you.
Last night and Friday night, Churchill had a very successful cabaret. That was a real lot of fun. If any of you guys got to see that, I think the first night they sold out. I'm pretty sure the second night they at least came close to it. And it never ceases to amaze me how much. I mean, there were like 28 songs, 20-something singers, like 24, 25 singers. It never ceases to amaze me how much skill there is in terms of like the musicians, the singers around here, the actors, and the people willing to come out and support the arts financially here.
David, excuse me, Michael. Oh, I'm sorry. Michael didn't add that he accompanied all of them. That was terrific. Unbelievable skill as a sight reader. and a vast range of musical styles.
I wasn't sight reading.
Oh, okay. Okay, well,
I had like a month and a half to prepare.
oh.
Yeah. And that's a good thing. Yeah.
Well, you were terrific anyhow.
Mine is a concern. In fact, I think that's too mild a word. And it's a national concern. And of all the abominations that we've heard in the last week, the one that I want to draw to your attention is the one that insists that federal workers turn each other in. Maybe that's enough to say. I know of one branch of the federal government that was asked to list all the people who were involved with DEI, and they sent in a list of 26 people, and the response from the government was, that is not enough.
So mine is a bit of a concern and a joy. So I'm going to start out actually by reading a text I got from my granddaughter on Tuesday. Hello, Granddad. I hope you're doing all right. In trying times like these, family is everything, so I wanted to make sure you all know who I truly am. I identify as transgender, and I go by Andy. I hope you understand and I appreciate your love and support. To which I can only say, love you, Andy. And I hope you're finding happiness in your life, as you always have a special place in mine. That's not the concern. The concern is that, of course, she's saying this the day after Trump's inaugurated, and he's declared that there are only men and women.
I've got another one. Yes.
The joy was just being part of this conversation. The things that I heard in the past year with the book that we all read, and especially in the service.
Read it again. That is such a wonderful book. Anyway, I'm Vita, and this is my coming out. I've been diagnosed with senile dementia. It's in case. And I love you. We all have it. The only reason I'm saying this is if there is any thought that I could be of support or help to you. But ask me quickly, because I don't know how quickly. Like what medications to take and what not to take. Like I lost 20 pounds in 21 days with the first one I took. So anyway, I love you and thank you for being here. Keep coming back.
So with all the stuff that's been going on this week, the thought occurred to me last night, and I'm looking for support with you guys. Maybe I'm half-cocked in this thought. Should we be submitting things to the United Nations about human rights violations like as soon as they happen and not waiting? So I looked last night. We have to have a name. So if any of us know somebody who is directly impacted, whether they're in the prison complex and have been pushed into the wrong, misgendered because of Trump's new policies, or immigration things that are happening, if we have names, we can put them into the United Nations. And the more fuss we raise, the faster hopefully we get help. Thank you.
So we're going to have a bonfire up here.
Oh, you don't know the half of it.
Okay. I don't know how many of you knew John DeRocher, but we lost him last week. He was one of those souls that gave every second of his life to other people. He was the first in his family to go to college. He became a doctor at the University of Pennsylvania. He worked there for many years. He went overseas to many countries and worked, and then he came to Rock Hall and opened a free clinic. And he ran that until he simply could not anymore. Had a big, beautiful farm, went to Heron Point, and unfortunately, we lost him last week. His memorial service is Saturday the 1st at 11 o'clock in Wesley Hall at Heron Point.
Don't forget his ice cream.
Oh, well, his ice cream was the best part. I only knew him in ice cream time, so I consider myself very, very lucky because he made the best homemade ice cream. Rum raisin was one of his specialties. Yum.
Can you stand one more? Today is exactly 75 years that India became a full sovereign republic. It had attained its independence 2.5 years earlier, but today, 26th of January, 1950, it became a sovereign republic. And the Constitution of India, it took 2.5 years to make the Constitution. And the Constitution was created by a scholar who was educated at Columbia University. Excuse me. And 75 years later, in world's largest democracy is thriving, and America will be real proud of that democracy. And I was in the 5th grade at the time. After 75 years, I have been in this country for 62 years. I went to Columbia University, got my degree in chemistry, and worked for DuPont for 30 years, and so on. But I'm just glad that Trump has not thrown me out of the country yet.
Well, I wouldn't cut off the except we're out of candles. But for all of these thoughts that have been shared with us, and for those that are held within, let's please observe some silence. Blessed be.
Let us receive the joys and sorrows that were just shared, knowing that each joy that is shared is joy multiplied as our joys are celebrated in this community. Here, week after week, we have the opportunity to do a very specific spiritual practice: sympathetic joy, joy at someone else's joy. Sorrow is also shared, and sorrow is divided as we hold it together as a community. We are never alone, and there is a lot of work in front of us. All lives have joys and sorrows, and we neither celebrate nor bear them alone, but we weave them into create the communities of our lives. I invite you to settle into your space, take a deep breath, find a restful but alert position. Today, we will talk about the stories of our lives and the stories that we write. I invite you to imagine a blank paper. Imagine the story of your life appearing on that paper. Maybe it's being written by a beautiful quill. Maybe it's appearing with that magical flourish of golden sparkles out of nowhere. Or maybe it's a computer screen or a stone tablet. Whatever your imagination speaks to you, however you imagine your story being created. And as you watch, note the themes that emerge. Our initial stories of our lives are given to us, and then our stories change and grow as we do. There are stories, if there's any stories you notice being repeated, do they transition contexts? Are there any stories that fill you with joy? Are there any stories that don't serve you anymore, if they ever really did? At the end of the sermon, I'm going to invite you to write down a story that feeds your soul or spirit. And we're going to invite you to hold that for hard times. Something that fills you with joy as a grounder. I'm also going to invite you to write down on the flimsy paper something that does not serve you, something you would like to let go of. And this is flash paper. So Jan and I will invite you up and you can ignite it or we can help. But that is for later. I said, you called it a bonfire before I said, you don't even know the half of it. That is for later. For now, it is time to practice generosity.
And in that spirit of generosity, we will pass the baskets and Michael will play an inspiring piece of music. Then we'll move on. No? Next item on the order of service is a second appearance of our fledgling choir. Unfortunately, much of our fledgling choir opted not to be here today. And it's a big ask for the three of us left. So we're going to open this up. What number? 128. We're going to open this up. Consider it a choir audition. Stay seated, and those who are interested in doing so of the choir can stand up here and present ourselves to you. This is quite a nice song.
4 verses, 3 verses, how many?
Well, they go pretty quickly. So by the 4th verse, I will expect everybody to be really good at it.
I think the choir undersold themselves. They did great. And thank you all for doing your choir auditions. Your life is a story. Write well. Edit often. I want to open thanking Darlene for that quote in Reflections. I chose the topic, but Darlene found that quote and made the slide. And while that quote struck me as perfect, as Jan mentioned 2 weeks ago when I was preparing, in the interval week, it's become even more so. So this quote is attributed to Reverend Susan Stanton of the Episcopal Church, who is a transgender activist, parent, and had positions from being a city planner to a chief financial officer in the Episcopal Diocese of Los Angeles. Reverend Stanton transitioned herself in 2007. She faced public interviews, wrongful terminations for being who she is, and she spoke to the nation on Larry King Live. While she was fired for completing her transition, the cities who employed her did not stop her. That did not silence her. She found positions, other positions, and eventually her ministry. And this story feels really important today. And I had written this before our joys and sorrows. Because our government no longer recognizes gender diversity. Why is that story so resisted? What does the story of one beautiful spectrum of humanity threaten? And why is it so dangerous, or seen as so dangerous? Because here, we believe trans lives are sacred and love is love, period. No human is illegal, ever. Your life is your story. Write well, edit often. These powerful words and the author's story inspire a sense of agency for me today. As I write the story of my life, it isn't given to me. It isn't predetermined by generation, relationships, or time. It isn't determined by the 24-hour news cycle. From the founding of our nation, there were people who resisted slavery. Their time did not define them. They saw injustice and chose resistance. During World War II, our tradition got our flaming chalice as a symbol for documentation we created to support people evacuating. It also served as a communication that wherever they were was a safe place, across languages when we couldn't talk to each other. Among those evacuating, that symbol came to mean care, respect, and safety. We're living in the times of the rise of white Christian nationalism. And these times do not define us. I believe in the promise of America, and I love this country deeply. I believe in a multi-racial, multi-ethnic democracy that is just for all. Before I turn my focus to the individual, I want to name that as I write my story, and I write it as well as I can, and I promise I edit often, I am writing one story of about 341 million stories that make up the United States. The membership of UU congregations is about 153,000 stories of 341 stories that make up the United States. I am responsible for how I live my life and how I impact the lives of those around me. I choose to live my UU values, I choose generative love, and I choose to mourn harmful choices. and I choose to resist harm. Societies and the world have been recreated and created 1,000 times, and they will again. The process to do that is always happening. Sometimes there's more energy and change in the system, and chaos can be more obvious. Sometimes things look stable, but to be honest, that's an illusion. Most of us probably don't feel our skeleton turn over every 10 years, right? But it does. Every cell in your skeleton has changed over every 10 years. It's happening, you just don't see it, right? Change is always there. My colleague, Reverend Margaret O'Neill, teaches that change is inevitable. Transformation is optional. And these are transformational times. I write my story, and I do have agency, and I do not write it alone. I want to return to the definition of the mind that we've talked about before from professor and author Dr. Dan Siegel: an emergent, self-organizing, embodied, and relational process that regulates the flow of energy and information. Okay, who just thought that, wow, changing my mind now sounds way cooler, right? The individuality of I write my story resonates with the emergent and the self-organizing part of that process. The communal part of what we do here is represented in our relationships in the context of embodied relational processes what happens is regulating the flow of energy and information. And it's important too that no one part is any more or less important than the others. The mind really is a beautiful thing. Maybe honor the charge to write well. And in chaotic times, we may be tempted on occasion to yield to the overwhelm, the chaos, the numbing, the disengagement. Rabbi Joachim Prince told us that is not writing well when he spoke before Martin Luther King at the March on Washington. I want to share his words with you. When I was a rabbi in a Jewish community in Berlin under the Hitler regime, I learned many things. The most important thing I've learned in my life and under those tragic circumstances is that bigotry and hatred are not the most urgent problems. The most urgent, the most disgraceful, the most shameful, the most tragic problem is silence. When evacuated from Germany, he led a synagogue in New Jersey and became a white anti-racist ally. He saw what had happened to his people as a direct corollary to what was happening to Black people in America. His resistance was powerful, impactful, and supported communities facing oppression. These words of an immigrant feel really important today in the face of our polarized society. It is not us and them. As hard as it is, there is no them. There are people, and we cannot be silent. Poverty is a human-created condition. War, poverty, environmental destruction is going to continue to push people to immigrate around the globe. How we choose to respond to mass migration of people is an important question of this time. Solving mass migration humanely and with compassion is part of how I define writing well. The concept of whiteness was created and defined in US law, mostly around immigration. Whiteness defined who was welcome into our country and in what numbers, and who was turned away. Why is teaching history such a threat? Why is learning about and from people with different experiences perceived as such a threat? Because my Unitarian Universalist values teach me that all human life is beautiful and valuable and sacred. And making art, music, dancing well, play, making love, savoring something sweet or savory, not everyone has a sweet tooth, is all writing well. Creating those moments and sharing them with those you love around you creates that thread of connection that is so sacred. And while there's a lot of powerful words from the civil rights movement, a really significant part of the change that was really impactful was being together in community, singing songs, and making those living well moments right well. The final phrase, edit often. That offers 2 key points for me. First, hallelujah, we do not have to be perfect. If we wrote perfectly, we wouldn't need to edit, right? Edit often honors that we are going to change and we are going to get it wrong, and that's okay. Growth only happens when we are willing to get it wrong. Receive feedback, recognize the oops, and start again. That framing invites us both to see the humanity and inspiration in those who came before us, and is a great way to keep our heroes and sheroes and all the people who inspire us human and approachable. Dr. Loretta Ford was the co-founder of the nurse practitioner profession, and she founded it to support public health. She died this week at 104 years old. She was described as a force of nature when it came to public health. And part of one of the quotes from her obituary was, "I've been kissed, kicked, reviled, revered, and crucified and credited." And she was a real person, just like you and me. All those who inspire us can be people held in relationship and that we hold in care. People who did things, big things, small things that change the larger story. People like us. And if they can, we can too. When we embrace that we will be wrong as a way to learn and grow, we can move from judgment and unworthiness and let go of the need to be innocent of wrongdoing. Has anyone ever had that call-in moment and felt that shame? Ouch, right? We can let go of that because of course you got called in, right? We're allowed to be wrong. Has anyone not had to ever apologize for anything in their lives? I'm noticing a dearth of hands because I'm presuming everyone here is human, right? We all get it wrong sometimes. And when we act on the feeling of that need for that innocence, rather than taking it as an opportunity to learn and grow, we can excuse or dismiss either our own actions or the actions of our ancestors that caused harm. It's so much more generative to recognize those mistakes, those bad choices, and do what we teach our children. Apologize and make restitution. Editing our personal story and societal story to care for the whole human family, all of our siblings, is deep relational work that will create generative soil. Edit also holds room for that, not just I'm going to change, but other things are going to change, right? Change is sitting with me today as both a context and how we change. Our context can change, and I've talked about differences that, in perspective, that technology can bring before, and it's true. Specific events happened at specific times. The assassinations of JFK and Martin Luther King, the Challenger explosion, the introduction of the iPhone. As our context changes, the questions we need to address are going to change too. Our youth are asking, what careers can I do that AI and robots can't? I didn't ask myself that question. right? How can I train for careers that don't exist yet? My generation was asking, how do we integrate into this computer revolution? It's going to change a lot of things. We didn't know how, right? But it was a little different question. My parents were asking, how do they make their way in the largest generation of Americans at the time? Millennials eventually surpassed them, but. And my grandparents were asking, how do we survive as an immigrant in these lands? We can change, and in fact, we do. One of my favorite meditation images is comes from Thich Nhat Hanh, and imagining meditating on a rose, decaying down, becoming soil, for a seed to land in, to grow into another beautiful flower, again and again. Feeling the connection to the earth and how all living things are connected. And I connect to that cycle when times feel chaotic. Societies have changed and transformed throughout all human society, become rich soil that seeds can land in and bloom into something slightly, or sometimes rather different. It's happened 1,000 times, and it will again. My question for each of you is, what seeds do you want to plant? I have changed in big ways, small ways, transformative ways, aging ways, all the things. Editing often lets me hold on to what's most relevant right now and to let go of what isn't serving us. Maybe it never did. We can let go of what we've already learned or open up to what we still have to learn and what will help us bloom and grow in yet another cycle of life. Editing sometimes means clarifying our story. Throughout our lives, through spiritual practices, we have the opportunity to get really clear about who and how we choose to be. I choose love, compassion, resistance, and I choose to plant seeds of love, joy, and connection. And I refuse, apparently I refuse to pick the mic up nicely, but I refuse to let fear rule me. And I refuse hate. So now it is time, my friends, for you to practice. Your life is your story. Write well and edit often. Write down the story that you want to hold on your bright piece of paper. That is your grounding story, something that resonates deeply inside. And when you're ready, transition to the story that you're ready to release. Part of editing is removing the extra stuff that doesn't support you where you are right now. On the flash paper, please write something that's weighing on you that you would like to release. It doesn't serve you. And when you're ready, come forward on either one side, and Jan will help you with the lights from our joys and sorrows, as was referred to as the bonfire. Or come over here and I will help you with the chalice, and you'll have an opportunity to do your own flash paper and release it. And if you'd like, just raise a hand, and Jan or I can come and also collect your paper and release it for you. So I brought 60 pieces of flash paper. There will probably be extra. I'm going to caution against bringing it home. Just because I do have to be honest, that sooner or later they will spontaneously combust if brought home and forgotten about. So anyone who wants to help me release any extras later, happy to do that. Awesome.
Playing with fire.
Try to catch it.
Other than that, it's perfect, Tom.
Right at eye level and it's going.
Awesome.
Yeah. And this is for someone.
Was that guys? You're such a showman, John. You're always perfect. We've got a visitor playing with fire.
It looks like the line is fading down. Did everyone get a chance? And the writing can be metaphorical. You can imagine the word on there. They're all good. So these are the extra ones if anyone wants to help me make some flash stuff afterwards if we're done with that part of the service once Peggy's done with hers. But I would like to not bring it home. Woo! So please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn 318, We Would Be One.
time for a little discussion?
I do.
Okay, we will open the floor for questions, suggestions, criticisms. Was the fire marshal here? No. We'll have,
But to be fair, I did have the fire extinguisher right here.
I just want to add a little note that we can't write or edit everything, that there's so much that happens by chance, and that we have to be open to chance too, and realize when something happens that's, really special, that we should acknowledge it and let it happen.
Thank you. That is really important. That's part of what we respond to, right? That context piece and not taking too much ownership, right? Thank you for helping to highlight that.
Mine is just a clarification question. Could you just please repeat the name of the reverend who you mentioned that transitioned and was the head of a congregation in Los Angeles, I think?
She's the chief financial officer of the Archdiocese of LA, Reverend Susan Stanton. And it's it's with the quote on reflection, so you can even see it written.
Okay, thank you so much.
The question comes up is what is acceptable in society? There has to be some limits, and that's what we're working with right now. What are the limits of human behaviors that's acceptable? And I remember in high school, I wrote that we should not tolerate different, that we should be tolerated everything. And my teacher said, even intolerance. So there has to be a limit set. Who sets it? What we're seeing now is atrocious, but there has to be some sort of limits. And I think that Unitarians are doing a good job of defining that.
Thank you for naming that, Harry. I like how we do, as Unitarians, what we covenant, right? So basically we say, hey, community that's forming, what limits feel right here? What is it so that we can be safe, right? Because without any boundaries, then we can't be safe, right? That also leads to a different type of not okay, right? But how we do that is generally by covenanting. And we create the covenant and the rules that feel safe and that create safe space where we can, or brave space where we can get together.
I think we don't know each other's stories. I think some of our stories are very powerful and we're silent with them. I encourage you to respond to the email I sent out, which is to ask you to just say a little bit about your story. Why are you here? What brings you here to this community? And I heard very powerfully in the joys and concerns about the meaning of this community. So please let us know so we can share those. I think they're important.
I hope I'm not anticipating or preempting another sermon, but I would also urge everyone to write collaboratively. I spent the last week in Florida with the three most important people in my life, other than my wife, all of whom are dying. And, well, that's a natural process. We're all going. But it was important to know that I've said everything to them that I needed to say and that we're concluding our stories together, jointly. And we sometimes, in writing our own stories, forget that other people are part of our stories.
Thank you, that's powerful.
So I just wanted to say, as you were at your sermon, I had the thought, and I was raised Catholic, so I have lots of those thoughts in my head still. The scene where Jesus asked for this to pass over him, to not have to be crucified to make this happen. And so that's the first thought I had, that all of us wish this was not happening, right? And the second thought I had, and this might be, aging myself here, is do you remember in the scene, The Lord of the Rings, when Gandalf says to Sam, or Frodo, sorry, wrong name, that all we can do is choose what we are given. We are given this circumstance and this time, and how we respond is our gift and our story. And so we can't walk away from this. And so I hope all of us find that space.
Thank you, Deb. So as we prepare to go forth into our larger community, let us bring our calm and open hearts, make peace, and grow in wholeness. Give of our integrity. Practice possibility, being present to each moment of this one wild, wonderful, beautiful life.
We'll now extinguish the chalice. The words are in your service. We extinguish this chalice. For the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again.